yourself in the mirror and accept that if you weren't a racist, you condone what a racist did. So that's, to me, the same thing. It's the same thing. So
I agree with you.
Big show. You got a big following. So God bless you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, folks, the man with the pinky ring and the New York thing. Forget about it. Bad Brad Berkwitt, and you're watching another episode of the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show on the Ringside Report web TV channel. Now, make sure you check me out on Twitter at Bad Brad RSR. Again, it's at Bad Brad RSR. And as well, check out my writing team at ringsidereport.com. Now, folks, before I get into introducing my very special guest today, I want to thank everybody from the BBB crew to RSR team to the Midas Mighty and everybody else around the world who yesterday sent me some of the most heartfelt birthday wishes on my 26th birthday. Okay, folks, as Debbie said, you hit it twice and add a couple. Again, from the heart, I thank you so very much. All right, let's get into introducing this very special guest today. She is a retired special ed teacher and a current Democratic Congresswoman representing District 13 in Tennessee. Oh yeah, Tennessee. So you know we're going to be talking about some hot topics today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to my show, Representative Gloria Johnson. Well, first of all, do we say Congresswoman or do we say Representative Johnson?
Representative.
Okay, well, first of all, Representative Johnson, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And just call me Gloria.
Okay, I'll call you Gloria, but I want to show respect because I respect that you're an elected official. I always tell my guests that if I have something wrong in my notes, because we know the internet isn't always correct, because I'm ex-military and detailed, feel free to say, hey, Brad, it's actually this. I'm not insulted one bit. Okay?
Okay.
So what I would like to do is we're going to do a 360 like I told you before. Let's start at the beginning. And it looks like you were born in Denver, Colorado. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, how long did you stay in Denver before you made it to Tennessee?
Well, I was 2 whole years in Denver. My dad was FBI, and that was his first assignment. They usually take you to a large city for your first assignment. So he was in Denver. That's where I was born. Then they take you, after you do that, they take you to a top 10 city, or they did at that time. And so then we went to Los Angeles from there. And Los Angeles, San Diego, Dad kept trying to get back east. So then we went from San Diego to Mississippi. And then finally, by the time I was in the 6th grade, we got back to Tennessee, which was home, which was where my parents wanted to be. So.
Okay. If you would talk about growing up in Tennessee for the viewers.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful place. It's an absolutely beautiful place. At home, I'm just 30 to 45 minutes away from the Great Smoky Mountains, which is probably one of the most visited parks in the country. And it's absolutely beautiful here. The people are lovely. Well, it's been that way my whole life. We're seeing a little more meanness than we used to. But it's still, for the most part, Tennesseans care about their community. They care about their neighbors. There's a little kind of a meanness virus going around, but I think that for the most part, our values for Tennesseans: hard work, opportunity, and fairness. And we need to get back to that.
Okay. It looks like you attended the University of Tennessee, where you graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Education. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Talk about your college days.
Okay. College days were great. At that time, that was a long time ago. And you could go to college. I worked a full-time job and was able to pay for my college with a full-time job, not making much over minimum wage. You could do that back then. Tuition was such that you could work and still get through college. So I was able to pay my own way through college. Sometimes a little support from my parents, but for the most part, I paid my own way working through college, which is, it's just not possible today to work a minimum wage job and pay college. So that's why we have these young people coming out with such debt, because we just can't do that anymore. for, and that's unfortunate.
Okay. Now, it looks like you were a special ed teacher, which you retired from doing that.
Yeah, I taught special ed for 27 years, most all of it in Knoxville. I did move to Denver for 3 years, and then came back to Knoxville when my father wasn't doing well, to help my mom care for my father. But most of that in Knox County. For the most part, I worked predominantly with emotionally disturbed behavior disorder teenagers. So that was sort of the area that most of my experience was in. And I jokingly, half jokingly, say sometimes that my years with emotionally disturbed teenager are what prepared me for the Tennessee legislature.
This is why I love you, because you don't pull no punches, Gloria. Go ahead.
Yep. I mean, that's it. It's funny, as an educator, so many times in committee or on the floor when we're arguing a bill, I can relate it back to something that happened, either with a family, with administration, something. Being an educator is actually a great background to have going into elected office, I think.
Okay. Before we move on to anything else, I want to thank you for being a teacher, because I've always said this, I always tell Debbie this, and I mean it, a good teacher that cares, because I know not all teachers are great, and like in anything that in life, but a good teacher is a hero in my book, because they make a difference. And I've had some wonderful teachers in my day that were mentors, and they make such a difference in a child's life. And I appreciate you taking that job on. Now, I want to ask you a question. Before that, I want to ask you a non-related boxing question, because you said Knoxville. Are you aware of a heavyweight champion? Now, he's passed away. He died sadly in a car crash in 1998. But have you ever heard of Big John Tate from Knoxville, Tennessee?
I knew Big John Tate.
Did you?
I sat at a Prince concert with Big John Tate in Knoxville. Yes.
He was such a great guy. It was sad that he died in the crash, and he had some demons that he dealt with, but I always loved him back in the day. And he's from Knoxville, Tennessee. He put Knoxville on the map with that. Okay. What I want to ask you about the teaching side, my last year of public education was 1986. I graduated in 1986. And all my years attending public schools in New York, Michigan, and Florida, I never saw teachers having to put up GoFundMes or Amazon lists for school supplies, which absolutely breaks my heart, Gloria. When do we, as an American culture, teachers have to pay for school supplies and put up GoFundMes or Amazon lists? When did this start, and how did it start?
Well, it's been going on. It has been going on for years. It's very insidious, and it comes in slowly. But that is why I actually got involved and decided to run for office. They were taking away a teacher's seat at the table. Teachers in Tennessee today they're being paid less today than they were 10 years ago, when you consider cost of living. And they're talking about restructuring our funding formula in Tennessee. It's a disaster. But all the raise they're giving to teachers is $50 a month. $50 a month. I don't think that's going to bring them out of still being paid less than they were 10 years ago.
Terrible.
It is outrageous. All these attacks on public education are why I got involved in running for office. That is what made me think maybe I could do more on the inside of the political process than as a teacher from the outside. And we are able to push back and gain some ground, but we have been fighting this privatization of our public schools for some time. I was talking with a friend of mine who used to be on the school board in Nashville. We've been working together probably the last 10 years, Amy Frog, on bringing this to light, helping people understand what they're trying to do by demonizing teachers, by talking about, CRT. In Tennessee, it's a big thing. Oh, these books are obscene. We've got to ban these books in school libraries. It's all about demonizing teachers and making public schools seem bad so they can bring in this idea of privatizing our public schools with charters and vouchers. And so It has been going on for a long time, but here in Tennessee, we are about to go past a ledge we're not going to be able to come back from very easily. It's disastrous. And the bill just passed out of Finance, Ways and Means today. And I think they're gonna ramrod it through, and it's going to be a disaster for our public schools.
It's just heartbreaking. If you could, for the viewers, I don't know if it's been passed in Tennessee, but we know, as I call him, DeSantis passed it in Florida. Just in briefly, but in layman terms, for the viewers to understand, what exactly is the "Don't Say Gay" bill that they're pushing in schools?
Well, the one that we have in Tennessee, I if you've seen The Princess Bride, I always say bills are mostly dead because they can bring them back up when they want to. A couple of years ago in our budget, the Senate and the House were disagreeing. They had a disagreement on the budget. And the Senate, well, what can we give the House that they'll want to pass our budget? Oh, we'll go ahead and pass their heartbeat bill, and then they'll agree to our budget. So our budget is often bartered with. They use women's reproductive rights as barter. My fear this time is they're going to use LGBTQ rights as barter for the budget. So it can always come back up. But our "Don't Say Gay" bill took it out of all textbooks, out of anything. And where Florida's was K through 2 or 3, ours is K through 12. It's remarkably, it's just outrageous. I remember a couple of years, I had this great student in my class, and he, with my class, of course, kids had behavioral issues. It could tend to be volatile at times, and when kids are hurt, they try to hurt others. Kids with emotional issues. And one thing they would always come after this one student of mine who was just a great kid because he had 2 moms. And we did something in our class. We had a problem solve. If things got out of hand and people were, going after bullying a student or something, we'd sit down in group and talk about it. We had mental health counselors available and that sort of thing. And we had to have that conversation that families look different. And, there's not, you will not be abusive to somebody in this classroom, and certainly not for this reason. And we were able to solve those problems in the classroom. I can't imagine what that year would have been like if we couldn't address that issue. I cannot imagine. There would have been no learning because it would have been a free-for-all all the time.
Terrible. It's terrible. It looks like you won your first congressional seat in 2012. Is that correct?
Or State House seat.
State House seat. Okay. State House seat against Republican challenger Gary Lowe. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
He was a local media figure, and it was an open seat. They had just redistricted. And so it used to be about a +1 or 2 Democratic seat, and they made it a +12 R seat. So the current Democrat who had held the seat for 22 years retired, and it was open. And so myself and the Republican challenger ran, and I think I beat him by less than 300 points.
288 votes to be exact. It was a close race, but you still won.
Yeah.
So what I want to ask you off of that question is, with the Republican Party then, was it as insane as it is now? Because I don't get me wrong, I know I always tell my viewers, we can have a difference of policies, and we can debate intelligently and fiercely and stand on what we feel is what we feel is right. And that's okay. That, to me, that's healthy. However, what's not healthy is the current group of Republicans who is not about policies anymore, with Marjorie Taylor Greens and Bobarts and so on. So I'm curious, when you first ran and won, what was in Tennessee, obviously, what was the Republican Party like in 12 compared to 10 years later in 2022?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting and very, it's lots of examples I can show. But when we both ran that race, it was the money I raised against the money he raised. And I won that election. After that first term of mine, where I was very vocal when it came to public schools, in in my reelection campaign, in addition to the money my opponent raised, the Republican Party put $250,000 in on top of that. And it was all from the school privatizers. But when you were in committee in that session, when I was there that first time, when we were in committee, we had camaraderie. I would joke around with my Republican colleagues. We may not agree on absolutely anything, but we were friendly. We joked around. And I still have that with some of the Republicans. However, those in leadership that I used to joke around with would not even consider it today. They just don't do that. And certainly not with a member who voices her opinions, no matter how much it might bother them. I'm going to speak truth to power. And I'm going to call them out when I think they're welcome to call me out, but I'm definitely going to call them out when I think that what they're doing is damaging to Tennesseans.
But Gloria, I want to, on that talking point, I want to piggyback what you said. It's okay calling you out. It's okay calling you out on your policies. But what I have a problem with them on, and they do it even within their own party, and I'm going to give the example that you know much better than me, and my viewers have seen me do clips on it, is Marjorie Taylor Greene. So you had Senator Romney, Senator Collins, and Senator Murkowski vote for now Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. And Greene decided, because she's a vile, despicable human being, that she was going to associate those three people within her party with pedophilia, which to me is the worst thing you could do to a human being, is either label them that or associate them with that when it's not even remotely true, because they did the right thing and they voted for Supreme Court Justice KBJ. So there's a difference between, I like how you said it, calling you out on maybe your policy or something that you bring up, but these other attacks that they're doing. And I don't think we've ever, in fact, I know we haven't ever seen it to the extent that they go today, or how they label the Democratic Party as groomers and pedophiles, and when they're the ones doing it.
Well, that's exactly the case here. I have already, by the other side, been called a groomer. And, I'm going to have to get used to that's who they are. That's not who I am. That's who they are. Right. And that's what I always say. It says way more about them than it does about me, because I am the member in the Tennessee State House who had a resolution to oust an admitted child molester in our body that the Republicans have protected for several years and reelected and protected.
Disgusting.
And I had a resolution to oust him. They tabled it, promised an investigation, but never followed through with the investigation.
But as human beings, they're good Christians, and they'll go to church on Sunday, which is I believe in God, but I can't stand the hypocrisy. But they'll go to church and they'll sing songs, gospel, and then Monday morning they'll go and cover it up. It's disgusting. I want to read something because it ties into what you said about when you ran, and then the money they put in. So from the term that you won against Gary Lowe, in the next election in 2014, you were defeated by Eddie Smith by only 182 votes. But what was interesting is you would run again in 2016, losing another close one to Eddie, this time by 151 votes. But in 2018, you run against him, if I'm correct, run against Eddie Smith again, and then you defeated him by 2,000, if my numbers are right, 2,454 votes, which is a much bigger number than the two losses that you had, I think it was two, against him. So my question is, what changed either in the constituents or whatever, that you blew him out by such a big number compared to the small margin that you lost to him? What changed?
Well, you're seeing that in suburban areas, some of those are changing. They're getting bluer, but also to mention some of the things that I continue to do. When I'm not in office, I'm still advocating for the issues I care about. I worked to help bring Medicaid expansion to Tennessee statewide. So I'm working on all these issues, and I'm also continually working on helping people understand how to access the information about what's happening in the State House. the more aware people are of what's happening, the more likely they are to vote better, quite frankly. And so it's a culmination of several things, but one of those things is I think that Trump did a lot of damage in our area, certainly in the suburban areas, and people are thinking, is this really what I want? But also doing as much as I can to get information about what's happening at the State House, because that affects you so much more than some of the federal stuff that everybody gets hung up on. Bringing it back to those local issues that affect you every day is really important. And I think that everybody thinks that presidential elections are sexy and whatever, but really what's happening at the local level is some of the most important information you need to have and pay attention to, and hold people accountable, hold me accountable. I get so frustrated when I came back as what I call a red shirt freshman after those 2 terms. I went to freshman orientation, and the Republican leader does freshman orientation. And he instructed the whole group, we have these secret hallways that you all can access with your badges so that you don't have to walk through the main hallways, see the press, and see, constituents you don't want to see or whatever. And I'm thinking, I have no business being up here if I can't walk through the main hall, talk to the press if they have a question, talk to a constituent if they have a question. Why in the world would I come up here and hide what I'm doing? And this is what they do. They run to the press, they hide what they're doing and try to bring it out last minute before people get informed and pass things that the people don't find out about till a month later.
Right. Well, you saw, I'm not trying to make fun of him, but I can't stand him. If I'd be lying if I told you I didn't stand. I saw Madison Cawthorn wheel off in his wheelchair so fast when I think it was Jim Acosta was trying to talk. I had never seen someone roll so fast in a wheelchair in my life to get away from a legitimate question from the press. But yeah, you're right. They do it all the time. I want to read something for the viewers that you tweeted out. On November 15th, 2021, you tweeted that the chant, "Let's go Brandon," critical of President Biden, should be equal to the burning of the United States flag. You also wrote, as a friend said, "I think it should be equated with burning the flag." In essence, that's what they are doing. First of all, I think it's appalling. Okay, I think it's despicable. Debbie and I, we live in Northwest Indiana. Don't tell anybody. I'm a New Yorker, but we came out here because Debbie got a job at BP. So out here, we see "Let's Go Brandon," but we also see in communities with an HOA, which I don't understand how they can let that happen, but we also see the F word spelled out, Joe Biden. And my bone of contention with that is this: little Johnny and little Lisa see that flag, then they go to school and they tell little Tony and little June, F you, because their parents fly that flag. Then they get mad and wonder, where does it come from? No, it comes from you having it at home. And in some ways, I think it's almost child abuse when you see them with this stuff, because their kids emulate what they see. Because as we know, kids are not born racist. They're taught how to be racist by somebody. At least that's how I feel. But
and it's not their kids that see it; the neighborhood kids see it.
And the neighborhood kids. What I want to ask you is, did you ever think, forget being in office, did you ever think, and I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but in all your years to today, that we would ever see this in the United States of America to this point?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely not. And I'll tell you, because of some extremists that have relocated to Nashville, got a hold of that tweet, wrote articles about it, completely misinterpreting what I said. Because here's the thing, I know that it's protected speech. I know that burning a flag is protected speech.
It sure is. I always tell my viewers that.
And I would not do either one of those things. I'm not going to take away. I didn't even suggest taking away anyone's right to do those things. What I wanted to show you was that those people hate flag burning. But what they're doing is disrespecting the commander in chief, as does the flag. And so don't pretend like your thing is nice and this other thing is bad. They are both disrespecting the commander in chief. And I'm not saying don't do it, because I think there's some folks out there who have reason to be really furious with things that are happening in this country and how someone else, it is not my place to determine how someone protests.
Right.
You know, but those two things can be equated.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. It's like, I'm a veteran. You see my shadow box behind me, and I stand on this. I don't care who it pisses off. If a veteran or a military retiree, this is just my feeling, I'm speaking for me as a veteran. If they went to the Capitol on January 6th, okay, I took an oath, raised my right hand to the Constitution, to defend the Constitution several times. If you went to the Capitol on January 6th, you negate your service. I'm not going to be one of those guys. Oh, you're a patriot because you served. You were till you went to. If you went there on January 6th, just me, you should lose your benefits. And if you were retired military, you should be court-martialed like Michael Flynn. I know he didn't go to the Capitol, but he helped in the insurrection with his BS. You should be court-martialed and lose your pension, and they should be locked up. I don't have sympathy for veterans. They know better. And how any veteran to this day can still support Donald Trump after January 6th insurrection, which was an attack on democracy, the Constitution, everything that we stood for, everything that we enlisted for, I should say. But what I want to ask you next is Senator Marsha Blackburn. Now, Stella Parton is a good friend of mine. She's been on my show, and Stella uses her Twitter platform. She roasts her. She talks about her racism, her misogyny, and how she acts as a woman too. So I don't want to get you into a bashing thing with Senator Blackburn, but what I do want to ask you for the viewers, what is with Senator Blackburn? Because as a woman, it's like the things that you do are disrespectful to women, period. Take away that you're a sitting senator. What's going on with Senator Blackburn?
Disrespectful to humanity.
Yes.
And so uninformed and misinformed. It is shocking how little someone can know. And it appears she believes and aligns with some of the QAnon things.
Yes.
We have members in our legislature here in Tennessee who clearly, they bring up QAnon talking points in committee. And, I got taken to task by a newspaper guy, the Tennessean newspaper guy, because, he felt like he was doing a both sides on speech. And it's like they say vile, despicable, horrific things. And all I did say was democracy was dead in Tennessee. And I was angry because I'd just come out of committee where the sponsor of a bill would not take a single question. And to me, that is not democracy. So the point I was trying to make is when you have a supermajority in your legislature and a Republican governor, Republican House, Republican Senate, the democratic process can be removed. And we are not seeing a democratic process. We had a bill to ban books just a couple of weeks ago on the House floor. Republican caucus chair stood up and requested that we shorten the debate to 2 minutes per person, 2 minutes per argument. So that meant I got 2 minutes. I got 30 seconds to ask my question to the sponsor. He took a minute and 30 seconds to answer back. So I got no follow-up. My mic was cut. Every one of our mics were cut at 2 minutes. You're banning, and then they didn't even let all our members speak. All the ones who wanted to. Everybody didn't want to, but there were more to speak, and they cut off debate. So they are literally banning debate on a bill to ban books. That's not democracy.
No. But I want to ask you as well with Blackburn, as a woman, not as an elected official. I tell my viewers, I have no problem with any Supreme Court nominee being asked tough questions about cases that they ruled on, whether you're Democrat or Republican, fair questions. But and I want to just talk about Blackburn because she's from Tennessee, or represents Tennessee. When she asked now Supreme Court Justice KBJ, what is the definition of woman? I don't want to curse here, but I'm going to try to refrain. But what the heck does that have to do with it? And it's a stupid question. It was so degrading. and from a woman to degrade a woman, then, of course, Cruz piggybacked on it, and then Holly, and then Cotton, and they were all as vile as they could possibly be. Oh, and Lindsey Graham, can't leave him out. As vile as we, but Marsha Blackburn, what is the definition of a woman? What in the heck does that have to do with anything with the Supreme? I don't even understand it. I don't even understand the question.
Clearly, it was about scoring political points,
Right,
and not
right.
about the topic at hand. Funny thing is, she couldn't answer the question either. So
Yeah, right.
something should be said for that. But Marsha can't answer most questions
Right.
because, as I said, she is ill-informed, doesn't even pretend to try to be informed, but she does spew the talking points. And it's not only anti-woman, it's inhuman.
Yes.
The lack of humanity in these folks is glaring. It is just glaring. And it makes me sad for our country. It really, really does. I don't like feeling this way,
Right. Right.
And I know that people are better. Like I said, the folks in Tennessee are really great people, but some of them are just under this horrific spell or part of this cult of hate.
No, it is a cult, Gloria. It's worse than Jim Jones in Guyana in 1979. And I tell my viewers this, they say, "Oh, but he killed a lot of people." He did. He killed a lot of people, but he used religion. They don't even use. I mean, some of them use religion, but for the most part, it's insane. Trump didn't really use religion. He's not a religious man. Ask him to quote a verse in the Bible, 2 Corinthians. I mean, come on, it's insanity. What I want to ask you, and I want to preface it with this because I don't want you to feel like I'm first of all, I vote blue, okay? But I wanted to ask you a question. I wouldn't be doing my viewers a service if I didn't ask this particular tough question. One thing I do get on Twitter and I say, and I don't paint with broad strokes, but I do feel, and I'm going to vote blue no matter what, even with what I'm about to say, but I do feel that some Democrats that are in power and are running have terrible messaging. I just don't think the messaging is very good. I think sometimes it's too many facts and it should be more layman terms, because I feel that the Democratic Party is the only party left, though I do really want 2 parties. I think we need 2 parties in this country. I always tell my viewers that, even though some too far on the left are like, no, we need 1. No, we need 2 parties. But some of the messaging is so lost in documents this long or facts, or, we have to, do, instead of just getting out there and every day saying exactly all the good work that you're doing. Like you said a little bit earlier ago, why would I run from I'm not saying Democrats run from their constituents, I'm not saying it, but why would I go down a hallway not to meet my constituents? In my opinion, some of the messaging is just like defund the police. I thought that was a horrible slogan. And President Biden has had, even though he came out and said, I never endorsed that slogan, but there's still people within the Democratic Party, I know it's like far left, that still push defund the police, and it hurt the Democratic Party. I think it did. Talk to that point if you agree, or educate me on maybe it's not just messaging, or whatever you think, whatever your opinion is.
No, I think that messaging is critical, and I think that we need to think about it. In Tennessee, I live in East Tennessee, which is very red. And so in order to talk to people, you have to talk in ways that they understand and really get to the crux of the matter. And the point is, what are the things that affect them at their kitchen table? What are the things that they're dealing with? We have not expanded Medicaid in Tennessee. And 70% of Tennesseans, both sides of the aisle, think that we should. But our elected officials, the Republican supermajority, are beholden to Americans for Prosperity and the NFIB, who have stopped Medicaid expansion from passing in our legislature. And so when I talk to people on their doorstep, and if you want to win an upside down race, you've got to go on people's doorsteps and have a conversation with them. And so for me, that conversation starts. No Tennessean should lose their home or their business because they get sick. Or every child should be able to go to the doctor when they get sick. Almost no one is going to disagree with you there. And so bring it back to the things that are affecting them. You're working hard, you're going to work, you're working hard every day. shouldn't you earn a wage that allows you for a 40-hour hard work week to support your family, keep the lights on, get your kids, have a great education, and retire with dignity? Everyone deserves that. And so we have bills to raise the wage. We have bills to expand Medicaid. We have bills to make sure that every child gets a great public education. That's what Democrats bring. In my district, those three things have been the top three issues since I've been running. The interesting thing is every time there's a different one at the top, whether it's good jobs with good wages, healthcare, or education, it's always those three at the top with nothing close to them. So those are the things that I talk about. We have to answer a lot of questions because Democrats aren't the one pushing these wedge issues. Democrats have to respond to them because the Republicans are pushing them. And we need to know how to respond to them. If I want to convince Democrats, then I'll come with facts and charts and graphs. But if you want to talk to Republicans, those things are not what sway them. Finding out what they care about, finding out what their needs are and what their concerns are, and talking about how we can address those issues. A couple issues in Tennessee that are hugely popular. Cannabis reform, medical cannabis, legalizing or decriminalizing cannabis. 83% of Tennesseans favor that, and they're not doing it. 81%.
Okay.
83% of Tennesseans favor paid family leave. Can't get it through the first committee because the NFIB and the AFP are not for it. But
what are those acronyms, Gloria? What are those acronyms?
Americans for Prosperity, the Koch brothers.
Okay.
And NFIB, and I don't even know what it's supposed to be a Tennessee small business organization.
Okay.
It's a national organization. I'm pretty sure that less than 10% of Tennessee small business belong to it. But if you go see the research on it, it's 90% funded by the Koch brothers.
Okay.
So basically it's all Koch brothers outfits that are stopping these policies that would benefit Tennessee families. My paid leave is about the most conservative approach you could bring. It's where it's an employee paid. An employee pays $3 to $4 a week. And then after working there a year, they can take 12 weeks paid leave to care if they're having a child, to care for a sick child, to care for a sick family member or their own illness. So, there are a lot of places have employee matches or some of those things, but I went with the most conservative approach that doesn't cost business a penny and it doesn't cost the state a penny. It says, even in my bill, it says that the fund will pay for the state's expenses to run the program. So doesn't cost anybody anything, but it still can't get out of the first subcommittee, even though 83% of Tennesseans across the entire state favor it, both sides of the aisle.
Want to ask you a curiosity question. I picked you're on several committees, but I picked two to talk about. Why do they call it, like you're on the Judiciary Committee of the Third Extraordinary Session? I never heard that before. Why do they say extraordinary session?
That was
extraordinary.
That was a special session. I was only on that committee for that special session.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So my normal committees are government operations and naming and designating. Now, naming and designating was created by our disgraced speaker from 2018, who had all kinds of problems, and he created that committee for the bad kids, the kids that spoke out and that sort of thing. Government operations, I love that committee because we deal with every single department, and we're able to, like when we have comptrollers reports and they have findings from the comptroller departments, we get to hone in and question the departments on those findings, and it's sort of a watchdog for some of the departments and everything, and then it's rulemaking for a lot of the legislation. So it's that as well. But it's also the committee where we had the TISA school funding bill come in, and they called the question before even though we were on the list to ask questions of the sponsor, they called the question before we could ask questions, and they would take no questions for the sponsor, because the sponsor, quite frankly, doesn't fully understand the bill.
Imagine that.
Yeah. It's an ALEC bill. It came from the American Legislative Exchange Council and passed by Florida, Texas, and various other states.
See, and when you said that, the thing that popped in my head with the Republican side is, and you saw this the other day, that now they said in 2024, they're probably not going to debate anymore in presidential elections. You saw that, right?
Yes.
Which is insanity. So you're going to run a candidate, which I don't believe they're not going to do it, but they may. They're that insane because Trump cried he wasn't treated fairly. Yeah, right. Trump wasn't treated fairly. They didn't treat fairly. He treated anybody fairly for 4 years. In fact, he didn't treat anybody fairly in business for the 50 years before he ran for office or more.
Right.
But what I want to ask you next is, my personal opinion is that the midterms coming up, I turned 54 yesterday, and all my 54 years on planet Earth, I honestly feel, we always hear it, but I honestly feel that these midterms are probably the most important elections, beating even President Biden's, all of them, for the House and the Senate. Question I want to ask you, I don't want to be gloom and doom, but I want to be gloom and doom because I believe in honesty. If the Democrats lose the House and the Senate in the midterms, what's the country going to look like, in your opinion?
Well, I have great concerns of that as well. I have concerns that we are losing what makes us a democracy. And I have serious concerns. Can we stand that sort of a loss further with Republicans in charge of those two bodies? Quite frankly, I can't trust them to do what's right for the people. They've demonstrated they're doing what's right for them. They're doing what's right for billionaires, but they are not doing what's right for the people. And I fear they feel like they are on a mission, that they have some divine right to do the things that they're doing. They justify, or at least certainly here in Tennessee, and I know a lot of other places, they justify it as if they have they're ordained to do this, or for many of them, it's like they were chosen by God. I don't know what they think, who they think I was chosen by.
Yeah.
but I got here from hard work, and I can certainly say that God gave me the brains and the ability to go out there and do hard work and get elected, because people want good folks and honest people, running the country, running the state, and running your local county. And I get so frustrated when I hear people say, well, they're a politician. Of course they lie. The expectation should not be that they are going to lie and cheat. I want people to expect their leaders to be just and fair and honest. That's what we should expect. We shouldn't expect them to lie and to cheat.
Okay. I want to ask, before we segue into the second half of the 360 today, I want to ask you two more questions. You shared a video, I can't remember off the top of my head. It might have been from somebody from Tennessee. You tweeted out last week. And that's actually how I became aware of you. And I'm like, okay, good. I'm with you. I even told my BBB crew, you need to follow her. Was that in Tennessee where the guy invoked Hitler's name?
That was the Tennessee Senate. Yeah, that was a chamber right next to ours. And it was, I'm always shocked. When they do things like this, I'm always shocked. But he literally praised Hitler and held him up as an example of how homelessness, as many commenters on my thread said, can pull themselves up by their jackboot straps.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But he pulled a Trump thing, Gloria. I love that. But at the very end, and that's what the trumpets do, those SOBs do, because they learned it from Trump. At the very end, he said, but I know, I don't paraphrase, but he wasn't a good guy. But see, the problem is they don't remember all of that. They remember all the other crap that he spewed, like Trump. And that's the little morsel that the trumpets jump in at, and they say, well, he said he was bad, but all the other stuff was much more powerful than that little morsel that he gave at the end.
He talked about Hitler with such zeal.
Yes.
And it was very clear. If you really watch it closely, you can see where Frank Nicely, he's not a dumb man.
No.
He knew he had messed up, and he added that because he knew he had to.
Yeah.
He was thinking about that as he did it. You can see it happening, but you cannot exaggerate the zeal with which he spoke of Hitler. And this is a man whose district is 30 minutes from mine.
See? Well, I'll remind you, when I tell you, you'll remember it. You probably forgot about it now. First of all, that's another thing that, and I always tell my viewers, don't blame Donald Trump for all this hatred and this racism and all this that we had in the country. It was there before. What he did was he made it comfortable for them to go out there and now say it. But I'm going to go back to when Sean Spicer, another one I can't stand, was his press secretary. Remember he talked about the Holocaust or Hitler very early on. And I'm like, how do you even put that in a sense? We shouldn't be, only thing we should be saying about Hitler is that he was the personification of evil. But they tie it in because they know that there's a segment of their racist base that loves that, because those were the people, Gloria, in Charlottesville with the, I'm trying not to curse, the tiki torches, and that said Black people were the N-word and Jews were the K-word and blood and soil, which is Nazism. That's the ones that they're doing it for. That's their little bat signal to them. Because Kennedy from Louisiana, that SOB, he does it too all the time. He always says the most vile things, but they all do. Last question I want to ask you before we segue into the second half is, in your heart of hearts, do you think Donald Trump is going to be held accountable for anything, either heavily fined or sent to prison at some point? Because I'm disgusted that he hasn't already been either nullified where he can never run again, which I cannot believe that he caused the insurrection. I will never forget that day. I will never, as a military veteran, every day I'm reminded of it because they normalize it on the right. And I think it's despicable what they do. And any veteran and military retiree that does it, they're despicable to me. But do you think he'll either be nullified, heavily fined, or sent to prison for anything he's done, the real estate stuff, the insurrection, and everything else that he's done?
So in my heart, I absolutely believe that he will be.
Okay.
In my head, I fear that perhaps he won't, but he has to be. And I believe that in order for us to win these midterms and all, we have to hang this around their neck. We have to make sure that they see it. And we need, like, we're getting ready to criminalize homeless people in Tennessee, and we can't criminalize someone who made an attack on this country from the highest level possible. What in the world? This is saying that those who lead get a pass. Absolutely not. It is just remarkable to me. And so I believe so deeply that it has to happen, that I think it's going to. But yeah, in my brain, there's a part of me going, it's not happening fast enough for me. It's not happening fast. You know, because I believe in law and order. I truly believe in it. I don't just say it, but I believe that it applies to those at the very top as well.
Right. And piggyback one more talking point of what you just said before we segue. Democrats, and I'm not minimizing what they did or anything, but when Al Franken took the picture when he was doing like this with the woman's breasts, he was gone. He was out. He was out. They called for him to resign. That was it. Even though he was doing great work, he's out. Anthony Weiner sent pictures of his wiener. Disgusting. He was out. He's done. Democrats kick the people out. Republicans like Matt Gaetz, I know he's not convicted yet, but he's accused, and there's a lot of evidence that he had sex with underage girls. Not convicted. I want to add that, but the accusations are there. If Matt Gaetz was a Democrat, he would have been gone by now. They would have called for him to go. If Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, who I despise, they're pigs to me and vile human beings, if they said the things about Representative Omar and all the other things they did, Marjorie Taylor Greene attacked the military the other day. That wasn't, she attacked us. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You can twist it any way you want. But then I'm reminded, because it drives me nuts, and I talk about it all the time, that in 2015, Donald Trump sat with Frank Lutz and said, and he was a Republican, that Senator John McCain, who I admired the man, I respected him, didn't know him personally, but I worked on a boxing bill with him, with his aide, that he was not a war hero. That's incorrect. He was a war hero. He was in Hanoi Hilton for 5.5 years, couldn't raise his arm to comb his own hair, but he attacked him. And that should have ended Trump's campaign right then and there. But what happened is that the people that loved John McCain, a lot of them hated him now because Donald Trump said he wasn't, I like my war heroes not captured. Even Frank Lunt was like, he couldn't believe it. Should have ended it. And I always use Gary Hart back in about 87 when he was caught on the boat, monkey business, it was called, and the lady was sitting on his lap. We obviously know he had an affair. He was the front runner. Then Dukakis got the nom. It ended it. Nothing ends Republicans doing the most vile things. And I honestly don't believe, and you could correct me if you think I'm wrong here, Gloria, that and forget policies, Reagan, Papa Bush, Bob Dole, Jack Kemp, those type of Republicans would not allow this type of just the personification of evil, the most vile. I honestly believe in my heart of hearts, they would not allow that in their party. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I think that's probably true. We have, my biggest frustration is with cowards.
Yeah.
Because folks are not, the senator nicely, when he spoke up and said that about Hitler, no one in the Republican Party around here has said one word about that. And I haven't seen a single statement.
Nope.
Me, if you are not speaking out against hate speech like that, then you are complicit.
Yes.
And absolutely, folks not speaking out about this, they are being complicit. They're allowing it because they don't want the wrath to come down on them, and it's cowardly.
Yes. In
Tennessee, I live in one of the most contentious House districts. You saw that because it goes back and forth. And some people are like, well, Gloria, maybe you shouldn't be so vocal and you shouldn't speak out so much. I did not get sent here to be quiet. I got sent here to be a voice for those people in Tennessee whose voices aren't heard in Nashville. They're just not, because of gerrymandering. Tennessee typically votes 60% Republican statewide, 60% Republican, 40% Democratic. However, because of gerrymandering in our state house, we have almost 25% representation from Democrats in the House and maybe 20 or less in the Senate. And that's not because there's a difference in voting in those areas, it's because of the gerrymandering. They're making their districts so safe that they don't have to even pay attention to their constituents, to the Republicans who want policies like medical cannabis and paid family leave and Medicaid expansion. They've drawn themselves so safe that they can pass the wildest, most outrageous, hate-filled legislation and still win.
It's terrible. All right. Let's segue into just the fun, random questions, no politics, just fun stuff for the viewers to really get a 360 of you. So the first one is, what is your favorite genre of movies?
Gosh, that's a tough one. I like dramas, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there an actor or one or two that movie comes out or TV performance that you say, oh, I want to see that?
Let's see. Who do I really like? Kind of off. Viggo Mortensen is one that I really like as far as an actor. Actress. I'm not sure. I guess I don't feel like I have that much. I don't watch much TV and I don't watch a lot of movies. So
okay, that's fair. Do you have a favorite musical band or one that you could just listen to over and over again?
Oh God, I got him. That's my jam.
Okay, go ahead.
Last night, after that horrible house session last night where we actually criminalized the homeless, I heard about a pop-up concert here in Nashville of Margot Price, and Margot Price is wonderful. And so I went out to see her and her band last night, and it was so great to just, kind of wash away the ugliness with people who care about others. And, she's big and she she gets political. She uses her celebrity to be political, and so it's nice to see what I would call a badass woman. You know, I said I think I tweeted out something like, I'm filling up my fighting cup tonight because I got to go back at it tomorrow. Tonight was a tough night on the floor, but we got to go back and fight some more. So doing that live music, but there's just a whole lot of people I like Jason Isbell and Allison Russell is a new, if you don't know who she is, man, oh man, she has this new record out. She came from a very abusive childhood and has written a record that really just has her working through all of that and coming out on top. And as a brand new artist, and she's up for 3 Grammys for this record, and it's just unbelievably stunning.
Okay, I'm going to check her out. That's a new name. I love hearing new names. Okay, do you have a favorite noise or sound you like to hear?
That's funny. Again, it's going to be music, but there was this long thread on Twitter one time. Somebody asked those weird questions like, what is your ringtone?
Okay.
And so for me, it's real important to have a ringtone that doesn't annoy me when I hear it. And so the one of the things that never annoys me, it's the Sanford and Son theme song. The Quincy Jones actually writes.
Yep.
Always brings a smile to my face, you know.
Well, you know what? Since you mentioned that, Gloria, I'm going to ask you a trivia question. Do you know who the original, Stanford and Son was a spinoff of a show based on? Do you know the original one?
Well, it wasn't the Jeffersons, was it? No.
No, it was actually a show from England.
Oh no!
Oh, now I'm gonna forget the step. I think it was called Steps. My viewers correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was called Step something and Son, but it actually took place in England. I'm gonna look it up now because it just went blank. But actually,
no, I wasn't aware.
Okay, but you know what? You were good. You got Quincy Jones did that. I love that. Yeah, it was a great show. Now flip that question. What is your least favorite noise or sound?
Sirens.
Okay.
I was at school when we had a school shooting, and sirens now, especially if I'm out of school, are just bad juju.
I understand. That's what I hate to go there, but I have to. Another thing that irritated me with Trump when they had the shooting, and he said, and I quote, "I would have ran into school." First of all, he can't run anywhere. He can't even run in a golf course. All he does is run his mouth. But to say that, how insensitive. I mean, the sitting president of the United States making a statement like that. Okay, now you're down south, and Debbie is from Louisiana, so I know how good the food is down there. So what is your favorite food?
Well, it's shock. Everything fried chicken and fried okra.
Okay. All right. What is your guilty pleasure?
Just either laying by the pool or by the beach and doing absolutely zero.
Okay.
Except soaking up the sun and enjoying the water.
Okay. What was the first job you ever had?
The first job I ever had was Long John Silver's.
Okay. All right.
In high school. Well, actually, I was actually paid before that to babysit for a younger child over the summer. So,
Okay.
But either babysitting or Long John Silver's.
Okay. If you hit the lottery tomorrow, 200, 300, 400 million dollars, what would be the first thing you do?
The first thing I do would be to pay off all my family's, everybody, my close family, pay off any debt that they have. Probably invest in affordable housing in my city and fund some really good candidates.
Okay. Good one.
I would help win some elections that we need to win to bring some people that care in. Those are the things I would do.
Okay. What is your favorite vacation destination?
Last summer, I haven't taken one in years, and last summer I went to Greece, and that was like the third time. I used to go when I was teaching because you have the whole summer off. I had an aunt who worked for the airline, so I could get companion passes. And so I would go and spend like almost a month over either in Italy or Greece. And like, again, it goes back to the beach and the water and just, you know, and the history is fascinating over there too. So I love that part of it.
Okay.
I never expected to be so, when I went to Pompeii, you know, my mom had never been, but she was always fascinated by it. And I thought, oh, well, yeah, that'll be cool. But when you get there, it's just like, wow, you know, so the history part of it and the water part of it.
Okay. What's the number one thing on your bucket list?
God, you know, passing Medicaid expansion in Tennessee is the first. That's the one thing that we could do that would help hundreds of thousands of Tennesseans.
Okay. If you could meet one person, Gloria, from any time in history, dead or alive, any walk of life, who would you like to meet, and what would either be your first question or something you'd like to talk to them about?
Okay. So I would have to say Roger Miller.
Oh, great one. Yeah, I love Roger Miller.
I think he's an amazing songwriter. He was an amazing songwriter, hilarious person.
King of the road.
He was music. I mean, everything about him was music. And I think he'd be fun to hang out with.
Did you ever see, if not, I'll email it to you. There's a great clip. He did King of the Road, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a great clip because Dean Martin covered it years ago and he had a hit on it too. Roger Miller, of course, wrote it. I had the first hit. But there's a great clip of the two of them. Did you ever see that clip when he was on the game? I'm going to write a note. I'm going to see if I could find it. I'm going to email it to you because you'll get a kick out of it. Okay. With everything we discussed today, Gloria, if you had to sum yourself up in a few thoughts as a human being, what would you say?
Myself?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. An advocate, I guess.
Okay. Nothing else? I know it's a tough question.
A fighter.
Okay. Okay.
An advocate, a fighter, somebody who just is really passionate about justice.
Okay. Very respectable. And the last question I always end on, do you have a saying that you live your life by? And if so, what is it?
There is I guess there's a quote, Dave Barry, I think, it's someone who's nice to you but rude to the waiter is not a nice person. That's always been, you know, well, people will, oh, well, he's talking about anybody. Oh, well, he's such a nice person. Well, but they do this thing. So is that really a nice person? So I've always, you know, someone who's nice to you but rude to the waiter is not a nice person.
And that's a good one. You know what? And you just got to say this talking point of what you just said. That's why I always say to the people that make a statement similar to that about Trump, they say, well, we don't like his tweets, but we like his policies. And I always remind them, no. Whether it's me or you or whomever, you own all of our traits, good and bad. So you don't get to pick and choose which ones you like and say he's a good person except for his tweets or the way he talks to women. You own all of us. And that ties into what you just said. You want to say he's a nice person, but no. A nice person doesn't do that. Yeah.
And one of my favorite movie is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
I love it.
Gene Wilder one. And of course, at the end, so shines a good deed in a weary world.
Oh my God, I love Gene Wilder and that great movie. And it's a great quote. Okay, if you would, for the viewers, give them your social media platforms where they can find you.
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at Vote Gloria J. You can find me on Facebook at State Representative Gloria Johnson. And Instagram is Rep Gloria Johnson, I believe.
Okay.
I do have a personal Facebook page, which is just Gloria Johnson, but they limit you there. So it's full. I post political stuff on both of them, but I also do a little more personal stuff on my personal page. People can view it. It's public, but I already am at my friend's limit or whatever. So.
Okay. Well, I want to close out with a couple of thoughts and then give you back the mic to close out completely. I'm going to go back to calling you Representative Johnson because I respect that you are a representative and you put country before party. Not always popular, not even always popular within your own party, but that's okay because I feel you're on the right side of history. And like I said, when I saw that you tweeted out that vile stuff that he did about Hitler, I said, this is somebody I want to follow because I wasn't aware of you until then, but that got me because my dad in his day, who was a very strong activist, fought against that type of stuff. So I appreciate you using your voice. I appreciate using your elected seat and saying things that aren't always popular and not worrying about what always is popular because what always is popular, being right isn't always popular. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate that you're doing something that my show is all about, moving humanity forward, because that's what we must do as a society to fight back against all this other stuff that is going on. So I thank you for that. I thank you for using your Twitter platform, using your elected seat to do these sometimes unpopular things because they're the right things to do, no matter how much heat you take. And I know you take a lot. I'm sure you get it from the crazies. I have no doubt that you do. So I thank you for that. And that's why I wanted to bring you on today. So what I want to do now is give you back the mic. You can close out with any thoughts you want.
My only thought is just asking people to get involved, wherever you are, whatever state you're in, whatever county you're in, get involved, helping elect people who care about their community, making sure that these are people you can hold accountable. And to me, those are Democrats. I mean, it is. And we have seen, certainly in Tennessee, that we cannot trust Republicans to do what's best for Tennessee families. And I don't think we can trust them at a national level. We're seeing that as well. And so this is not a both sides thing. One side is clearly going far beyond our norms, our democratic norms and our democratic policies. We've got to pay attention. We've got to hold them accountable. And we have got to bring back honesty, justice, and true democracy to this country.
Okay. On that note, again, thank you for coming on today. I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right. You take care and have a great day.
All right. See ya.
Okay. Bye-bye. Hey, folks, that's another episode of the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show on the Ringside Report web TV channel. Now, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at BadBradRSR. Again, at BadBradRSR. And check out my great writing team on ringsidereport.com. Well, folks, yet another human being who is moving humanity forward. Representative Gloria Johnson from Tennessee. And I was glad to get her on because, as she said, Tennessee is catching it with these Republicans that are above and beyond insanity. These are the type of guests you get on the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show. I promise you, it would be people that continue to move humanity forward. And she's doing that country over party. Very outspoken. You're going to see more of her on my show as things break down there. I welcomed her to come back on when we logged off of the show. Anytime she needs to come on to get her voice out there, she's got a welcome spot on my show. All right, folks, that's another one in the can. Forget about it. And remember, every act of kindness is a little love we leave behind. Bad Brad out. Thank you for watching the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show. Please follow, subscribe, leave comments. Forget about it and move humanity forward.